So Sonic Movie 3 is out. I saw it, and I've gotta say, a lot of what everyone has been saying about this movie feels so wrong. However, it is very nuanced, as it's not all one way or the other, but I personally think it leans pretty heavily one way. Now, I'm gonna wait until later in the video to discuss the second half of the film or anything that can be interpreted as a spoiler, and I timestamped when those parts start. But, as most people who watch me know by now, my overview of the first two movies is that I think the first one is an abysmally bad film that's plot makes no sense, especially considering Sonic could just run to San Francisco faster alone, as well as the fact that they do this whole elevator sneaking into the building to get to the roof thing, only to later be revealed that Sonic could have just ran up the whole time. I guess he just wants some bonding time with his new buddy Tom? And plot holes aside, that's not counting the fact that it's honestly just a boring movie that has no surprises, and the entire plot arc could probably be guessed within the first few minutes of the movie, with Robotnik having a small fight in the end wasn't really that climactic, and a chase scene literally just made so they could put it in the trailers. And that's not even counting that the literal last scene of the movie was in the original trailer, leaving the only potential surprise to be the post-credits with Tails, which again, you also probably could have guessed that one too. And while they were able to fix Sonic's model and overall did a lot of good to the movie in post, the plot itself was impossible to fix at that point. However, on the other hand, I thought Sonic Movie 2 was fantastic, and while it had some smaller issues, I still think it's one of the best video game movies of all time, with it adding Tails and Knuckles in a very concise way, as well as the Death Egg robot, which, given how it's now a kiddier franchise so it can appeal to more people, and they're just so terrified of getting that PG-13 label, which will strike out basically all of their core demographic, they renamed that to the Giant Eggman Robot. It doesn't really roll off the tongue as much if you ask me. But Supersonic's reveal in the second movie was a point everyone cheered and clapped for, which bluish rage Sonic from the first movie was something probably a single guy clapped at, and was subsequently shamed into leaving the theaters instantly. So yeah, I can't stand the first one, but I think the second one is peak. I'm basically the Nega LS Mark. Guys, I said Nega, like with an E, okay? Jeez. But now, when it comes to Sonic Movie 3, I think there's a lot of reviewers that aren't educated on Sonic, which, to be fair to them, is easily the weakest part of this film. As a quick example, at one point in the movie, and this isn't a spoiler, but Shadow takes off his inhibitor rings, and the reasons that's not a spoiler is at no point do they ever explain or even allude to what these are. And people in my theater for the fan event yelled when he did it, but if you aren't a fan who's familiar with basic Sonic lore like that, this movie won't explain it to you or hold your hand, so you're just going to be left behind. An issue that I think they just added like 10 or 20 minutes max to the movie easily could have been solved. But to get into overall impressions, this movie was, in comparison to the other ones, way over the top with its references, and at the same time, none of them really felt forced or hammed in. Well, maybe one of the earlier ones did with the SA2 opening phrase.
Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies, I'm out of here.
But past that, it all felt very authentic and never took me out of the mood at really any point. The jokes here were very good, some of the best, although nothing beats the final Robotnik line from Sonic Movie 2.
I did some things, you did some things. There are good people on both sides.
With one of the funniest ones here being a joke that Tom finds Kristen Ritter hot, to which Maddie hits him, but I mean, can you even blame Tom? She's kind of a baddie. And speaking of the face transformations, while it doesn't really make sense how Tails made these, plot-wise, this was a great mechanic that gave us Rachel and Randall without actually having them present, and making it an extremely short appearance overall, which, given how vocal the response of hating the wedding scene in Sonic 2 was, a scene that I actually liked and think was a nice cutaway to show the level of stakes on the human side, as weddings are pretty universally understood to be someone's big day. Regardless of that, they did all of that character stuff much better here in Sonic Movie 3. The Tokyo confrontation is pretty early in the film, meaning they get right into the plot and action pretty immediately, and is set up literally in the first scene with a surprise party for Sonic's birthday. And again, that's literally how the movie begins, so it kicks off way faster than Sonic Movie 2. There's no fishing scene or anything like that. And on that topic, the pacing of this movie is very fast. But with the movie being an hour 49, I think this fast-paced progression was perfect for a video game-based movie like this, and much longer or shorter than this would have felt pretty unbalanced. We see a lot of Sonic and Shadow interacting, and the story loosely follows the basic plot points of Sonic Adventure 2, cutting out anything that wouldn't fit And again, the balance they find here is easily the best of the three. They could have added a couple minutes to quickly explain Shadow's inhibitor rings, as well as extend the motorcycle stuff, something that was a surprisingly short scene. But past that, I have no other issues with the pacing of this. Now with that, if you haven't seen the movie, pause. I haven't been able to speak my true mind and talk about it, so pause, go watch it, and come back once you've seen it. Because let's get into the spoiler talk, and later on we'll talk about the end credits in the future of the series after the main movie, as it's safe to say I was finally vindicated and proven right on the videos I've been making for quite a while, literally predicting the end scene beat for beat. Well, with one exception. And we'll get to that later. You know, before I talk about the end credits, I want to talk about the actual movie. So initially, I was a little worried this movie was going to retread the plot of Sonic Movie 2 a bit, with Knuckles being tricked by Robotnik and seeing the light by the end and turning against Robotnik to side with Sonic. I had a feeling they were just going to do this again, but now with Shadow, and they sort of did, just in a really cool way. The main difference being that Ivo Robotnik is also a Shadow in the side of being ignorant and deceived, which here ties directly to the final ending of Sonic Adventure 2.
As a child, I looked up to my grandfather because of all the great things he accomplished in his life. Did he really mean to destroy us?
I don't know, but what I do know is we all did it together!
It's actually a more interesting arc here, because we at least get the momentary truce of Team Sonic and Robotnik, only to be immediately abandoned for Gerald once he's introduced. Also, the emotions of Knuckles losing his clan or whatever didn't really hit that hard, and neither did the Tails feeling alone stuff. I mean, like, I related, but I didn't feel like emotional by any means. However, here, the Maria stuff is actually crazy well done. I never thought I'd see it from a Sonic movie, but here we are. I got teary-eyed legitimately. A lot of the origins have been changed, which I do think makes sense. Maria is on Earth the whole time, and Shadow landed from a meteor, which is one of the few things I wish was better explained. While there's no mention of Black Doom or anything like that, and I think the film would be much more convoluted if there was, they also specifically mention that Shadow doesn't remember anything before he hit Earth, so it's not impossible Black Doom will be involved later down the line. But we also don't know much about the Hedgehogs from Sonic's world, other than there's Echidna tribes that they warred with, and I guess the Longclaw and the Owl people are on the Hedgehog side. Again, it's never been very clear. I also think it was neat how it's clear Sonic and Shadow both had a similar loss, but responded differently to them. However, when Sonic thought he lost Tom, his second major loss, he went into the same full Shadow Rage mode, a side of him we haven't seen before, and I'm not gonna lie, was pretty bad. I also want to note that while it would have made the movie more emotional and probably been the push that gets the kiddos to cry, I think it would have been neat if they used this opportunity to kill off Tom, as it would show there's actual stakes to this universe and finalize his arc throughout these films. But instead we see him totally fine looking, just wearing a sling, implying all that happened was he broke his arm, which is extra ironic since he was wearing a sling when he impersonated Commander Walter and got hit by Shadow. Now that said, Kayla, my wife, mentioned this to me, and I think it's a great suggestion. But if they're going to keep Tom alive, and I do think that's fine, it would have been an interesting progression if Tom had some permanent effects from the hit, such as being paralyzed and wheelchair bound, which I also think would have been beloved by the people who want to see more disabled representation like that. And it would also make more sense considering he got slam punched, was left unconscious, but woke up totally fine with a broken arm. I don't know, that same punch literally UN soldiers. Like, at least give Tom crutches or something. Now, the end of the movie was all great. However, something I found really interesting was the part where space was getting distorted as Robotnik was being pushed by Super Shadow. Changed quite a bit from the leaked storyboards forever ago, as while, you know, the beginning and end did happen, the whole seeing flashes and distortions of reality bending around him didn't happen. Now, that said, I don't mind that, and I think the revised ending was better. For example, I really like the live stream Robotnik did, apologizing and commending Agent Stone, and I think his final goodbye was actually rather sweet, which now it's for real this time. Like, he is almost certainly not coming back, especially with the end credits showing the next enemy, which for those, you know, who are cheating and didn't see the movie, we'll talk about after, because those are like ultra spoilers. But to end the main movie talk, the final scenes of this movie were insanely awesome. The fight scene between Supersonic and Super Shadow was so insane. I'm not gonna lie, it got me pitching a tent in the theater, okay? I couldn't handle it. And the revelation of them talking on the moon before the expected live and learn ending was so great. Also, the moon getting split by accident, but still by Robotnik, was a great addition. And I imagine in the next movie, we'll see some repercussions of that. But I do find it a bit strange they didn't even mention it at the end when they have the race and regroup. I think the moon getting split down the middle, or at least like a chunk of it, is pretty significant and worth discussing. At least like a throwaway line like, hey, that's gonna mess up the tide. I don't know. Nonetheless, I don't mind it too much, and I don't think something like that in the very wrap up of the movie really hampered my enjoyment at all of this film. But now, let's get into the post-credits of the movie. We see both Metal Sonic and Amy, something I talked about and was right about. So, all of you who said it was going to be Rouge and were so certain, I was based, and I know Paramount is a strong supporter of the Never Goon movement and would never allow such an unmodest tramp into their wholesome, pure films. However, I will admit, I was not fully right, because I did not expect all the multiple Metal Sonic. I guess it doesn't make a little sense considering it would be anticlimactic to just have one, especially when the next movie will be Jim Carrey-less, meaning there's going to be a lot of space to throw in another villain. Will Stone pick up the mantle where Robotnik left off? Probably, or at least have some role in the movie. Maybe even be on Team Sonic's side. However, with Amy being there and Sonic 3 clearly taking inspiration from SA2, I honestly wonder where they're going to go next. It's very possible they'll incorporate elements from CD, as that's where both Amy and Metal were introduced, taking things off-planet and introducing other worlds, including Sonic's, something that would be beloved by fans. And with the lack of human characters to the core plot of this next movie, could be an interesting opportunity to revisit Sonic's world. I've seen a lot of people talk about how that would increase the budget and add a lot to the movie, but actually it would be less. Doing these live-action film sets and then not just animating, but also compositing the shots so our anthro fuzzballs blend into the environment and don't look weird is extremely costly. So to minimize that and have a big chunk of the story take place on an animated world would actually be a huge budget saver. And because a lot of Sonic 3 being created during the writers and actors strike from a few months back, scenes like them being in space were obviously entirely animated, and Paramount didn't fly out to space to film that scene. While on the other hand, in Sonic Movie 2, a lot of the Labyrinth Zone set had to be created physically solely due to Robotnik being in those shots. So the less humans there are, the more likely we're going to get a mostly animated movie. Something I'm totally fine with and want to see how it gets done. Like, we've had 3 movies of these Earth-human-hedgehog interactions. I think giving it a chance to go see Green Hills and these other worlds is something I look forward to. The real question being that since the place in Montana is called Green Hills, would they call both of them Green Hills or give a new name to Sonic's world? I don't even remember. Did they call it in the first movie? I think they call it Green Hills as well. It'd be a little confusing, but I'm certain they can figure it out, and only time will really tell overall. When it comes to sequel talks, I'm unsure how they can reach the heights and climax of this movie again, but it has been confirmed there's another one coming, and it's planning to come out around spring 2027, so who knows what will happen in that movie. Overall, I really like Sonic 3. I think it's as good as Sonic 2, maybe slightly better, but I did seem to like that movie more than most. However, you guys, I think fans will see this new one as easily the peak in the franchise, and they're totally right for thinking that. But it's also possible I'm wrong. What do you guys think? You probably loved it, but I more so want to know, what would you all criticize about the movie in the comments, as we get it. You guys are Sonic fans, you're gonna love it, but I'm also certain some of you will point out flaws that are totally different from mine and I didn't even consider. So with that, I'll see you again soon. I'm getting screwed by a false DMCA from Sega, which I'm going to cover in a video really soon, but for now, subscribe so you don't miss out, and so I don't have to kill your parents, which I will manifest if you don't like and sub, okay? If you love your parents, you must like and sub, or else you're gonna lose them like Shadow lost Maria, okay? And why not check out my video going over the billboard in this movie teasing the next Sonic game? That's literally right. I'm not even capping, bruh. Lots of love to all who support me, and I really do genuinely mean it. And to my loyal supporters, your families will be spared from my manifested bullets or some sort of disease. Who knows what I will manifest and concoct up. So again, like and sub, or else they're gone. That's all. Bye-bye. Peace. Bye-bye.